welcome everybody. This is the first episode of Keto Carnivore Rocks with your hosts Jim Hobbs and Brian Forsythe. And just let you guys know right out of the gate, this is nothing more than a show. It's going to be fun, relaxed, and it's going to be about sharing recipes that rock, along with some health hacks and some other benefits and stuff that you can integrate into your lifestyle. And for those of you who don't know Brian, why don't you introduce yourself? Most people do, but just in case they don't, please say hello and who you are.
I'm Brian, as they call me, Brian Damage Forsythe, guitar player. I play with Kix and formerly of Rhino Bucket. And I love to cook. And I'm also, I'm a carnivore. I do the carnivore diet. And yeah, so I've been doing cooking videos and really, especially in this quarantine time, I've been really getting into it. So that's basically it, right?
Cool.
Did I forget anything?
No, you're good. You're good. I think most people know you from your Kix and Rhino Bucket, mostly Kix. And before we get into me, why don't we kind of share a little bit about how Brian got into cooking? I mean, I know Jimmy's into cooking as well, but how did you get to what led you to a keto lifestyle or now a carnivore lifestyle?
Well, really it started probably over 20 years ago. I got sober and right at the end of
Awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, 1998. And, after going through that whole process, I decided to, it just sort of led me on a path towards getting healthy. And I remember there were all kinds of little health issues I had to work out at the beginning. I was still detoxing and all that stuff. And I was having sciatica problems and all this stuff. And so that started me on my journey. And once I cleared up the sciatica, I started jogging. That was the first thing I started doing was to jog. And then when Kix got back together, this was, like Kix reformed in the end of 2003. And I hadn't seen Steve in 10 years. And when we got back together and I saw Steve, he was in such good shape. I was like, wow, like, how'd you do that? Because he looked like a young Iggy Pop. And
did he get you on PX90?
Yeah. That was it. Because I said, well, how'd you do that? How'd you get in that good of shape? And he said, P90X. And so I started. So that's what it really was at first. It was more of a, exercising and getting in physical shape. But the longer I did that, the more I started looking into the nutrition part of it. And, because, I would go I'd be home and I'd be pretty healthy at home. And I always cooked for myself. I've always loved to cook. I just never really shared it with people. And, but when I was on the road, I would, I just didn't, I would go to diners. I loved eating. I still do. I love diner food, and the dessert cases at the diners. Man, I could see
the real diners.
Yeah, my eyes would light up, and I'd go, just drool over all the desserts, and so on the road, I would just, was eating sweets and all kinds of junk, and then I would see, people would take photos and I'd see like, I'd be getting healthy at home and then I'd go and just eat all that crap. And then people would post these pictures and I'd look at myself, I go, man, I don't look that good. And it started to dawn on me that it was, all that sugar and stuff that I was eating was really affecting my looks. And the way that I initially arrived at the whole like keto idea was through that guy Dave Asprey. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that guy. He's the Bulletproof coffee guy. And he's got the Bulletproof coffee brand, and he the whole idea of putting the butter in the coffee and the MCT oil and all that stuff, that was the beginning of the whole experimenting with getting fat adapted. And I started doing that, but I still hadn't given up the sugar. So, but that got me, in that direction. And then what really kicked it in was a doctor's visit. I went for a checkup, and they checked my cholesterol. And like most doctors, they only look at your LDL and your total cholesterol. And this doctor freaked out, and she's like, "Oh, you're going to have to, we're going to have to put you on a statin like right away." And I'm like, "Wait a minute." I'd heard about the statin drugs, and I'm like, let me think about it. I don't think I want to do that. And she goes, "Well, why don't you start trying to like eat healthy and come back in 3 months, and we'll take and check again." And her suggestion was the normal, more whole grains, fruits and vegetables, low fat, everything that you're not, and vegetable oils and everything, that whole standard list of junk that'll kill you. And so I just agreed because I knew I wasn't going to do that. And then in that 3 months before my next checkup, I dove into keto, and that's when I gave up the sugar and all that stuff. No more oatmeal, no more all the grains and the carbs, and I was still eating vegetables at that point. So this was just the keto version. And so I go back in 3 months, and I was 5 pounds lighter. And I'm not overweight, so I don't have a lot of weight to lose, but it sort of brought me down to where I was supposed to be. And that freaked her out even more.
How was your energy levels as you're just getting off sugar? Did you find your energy levels coming up, or did you really not notice a difference in how you felt daily?
No, there's that whole transition when you do get off of the sugar and the carbs where, they call it the keto flu, but it's just your, it's withdrawal from sugar and carbs. So I guess I went through that too. So it was hard to tell because there's that little sag at the front, and then finally stuff kicks in. But I just noticed, losing that last 5 pounds really made me feel lighter on my feet. And it made me feel overall better. But that 5 pound weight loss in that short amount of time, that like double freaked out my doctor. Like, she's like, "Well, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm eating, low carb, high fat diet." And she's like, "Oh, no, you can't do that." And then she redoes the cholesterol test. And then she's still freaking out over my numbers. And I'm like, I just flat out refused. I said, "No, I'm not taking that drug." And she goes, "Well, you got to do something to correct this." And that's when I started doing my own research at that point, because I just didn't trust her word. And the last thing she told me before I left the office, which was the last time I ever went back to this doctor, she told me to go buy some of that Ensure drink. That horrible corn syrup that they give old people.
Oh yeah.
She wanted me to get some of that because I lost that 5 pounds. And I heard that, and I'm like, and this doctor, I went to her because she was like a holistic, I thought she knew what she was talking about. And as soon as she mentioned that Ensure, I was like, she's fired.
My story is almost exactly, I think you and I may have talked before in regards to what the modern medicine tries to prescribe for you. But my physical last year was almost the same as what you went through. Was my doctor said, "Well, what do you eat?" And I was telling him, I said, "Well, I eat bacon, I eat hamburger, I eat steaks, ribeyes, prime rib, and eggs." And he's like, "Oh, no, he did the blood test for me, high cholesterol, wanted to put me on the statins." I said, "No, I'm not put on the statins." Now he's asking me, how do I feel? Because at this point I've been on Atkins or keto for a good year. And I tell him, I said, I feel great. Do you ever get sick? I said, I never get sick. I couldn't even tell you the last time I remember being sick. I feel great. I wake up in the morning feeling great. I sleep great. And he's like, but your cholesterol is really high. I want to put you on statins. And so he was arguing with me about my high blood pressure and statins. And so I did like you. I said, you can write all the prescriptions you want. I just knew I was never going to take them, which is exactly what I did. But he also started telling me the same rhetoric that I've heard my whole life, which I'll get into a more serious note. But told me that, look, you really need to cut back your fats and your meats that you're eating. You need to eat more chicken. You need to cut, trim the skin, take the fat off, eat vegetables, add some, all the stuff that I see. Here's what I tell everybody. I'm not putting down doctors because they're only doing what they would never become a doctor. They did have your best interest at heart. They want to do good for people. So I respect what they want to do, but what they're taught to do really isn't that good. And when you start to find out, when you do your research, that the science in which they're using has never been proven, it's only been paid for by somebody else to get that curriculum into the school and into the doctor's offices. Because I can just tell you, when I watched my parents go to a doctor and get prescribed to take butter, put margarine, vegetable oil, and it literally killed my dad at age 55. He died of a heart attack at age 55. My mom made it till 81, but I never forgot what they told them to put, what they put them on, and the diet and the lifestyle they had them on. And they still try to use that same plan today, which does not work. It's been proven not to work. All you got to do is do a week on their plan and do a week on the no sugar, low carb plan, whether it's keto or carnivore. Either one of them, you're going to feel a lot better. And like you said, Brian, you lost 5 pounds just by cutting sugar in a week. And they freak out about that because it's, well, how in the world did that happen?
Right.
So,
yeah.
And then, so, it's a messed up world. And when I say it's a messed up world, we go to the people that we were supposedly trusting for our health. But the reality of it is, I've seen too many times, there's a few doctors out there who've come to realize what truth is. Dr. Ken Berry, I know you follow him as well. Dr. Ken Perry's one of them. And it's those type of doctors that literally, when you start to look at their research and start to find out literally what cholesterol really is all about. The cholesterol, for the most part, like that, I think you watched the movie too, is nothing more than firemen who show up at a fire to put a fire out. And because they take a snapshot that the cholesterol was there at the scene to put the fire out, next thing you know, well, we got to get rid of, every time that we find a fire that burns a house down, we find cholesterol there. Well, that's because the firemen were trying to put the fire out. To sit there and try to eliminate the firemen from ever being able to put your fire out is just not smart medicine, in my honest opinion. I'm not a doctor. I haven't even stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, but I just tell you that I think if you haven't give keto a try, you'll note in the first week or two how your body's responding to no sugar. And I think if you'll literally fight through the keto flu or the withdrawals without having the white stuff, I think you truly will start to find yourself feeling better, lighter, more energy, more centered peacefulness overall. At least that's how I felt.
Yeah, same here. But really, when I later on down the road, when I transitioned over to carnivore, that's really where I felt everything kick into gear. I mean, that kicked it into like overdrive for me. Well, there's a couple different factors. The other thing that I also started implementing like early on was the intermittent fasting. And I've been doing that.
So what's your core hours? What's your hours? Like you eat between 10 and 2, 12 to 5. What are your hours that you try to eat within?
Well, I don't have a set time. I just, the foundation is 16. So it's like 16-hour fast with an 8-hour window, but I move it around like to wherever I need it. And as long as I at least get 16 hours of fasting in. I can eat anytime after that, but I usually don't. I usually stretch it to like 22 hours or so. And then at wherever I start that first, where I break the fast, it allows me 8 hours from that point. I can eat anytime, like 8 hours from then, but I usually compact that into 4 or less. You know, it just depends on the day. I just move it around to whatever's more convenient for me. Like today, I'm trying to remember what time I ate. I actually did a cooking video before we
Oh.
did this.
Hey, what did you cook? So just so we know, what did you cook?
I smoked a ribeye roast.
Ooh,
So it's,
okay.
you know, nice prime rib. Yeah, so that took a little longer today, so I didn't eat till later, and then it's one big meal. I just eat one big meal, and then I'm pretty much done. Like I won't eat now till tomorrow afternoon. So that really helped too. I mean, that between, oh man, everything. But the carnivore, yeah. When it's funny because before I was even keto, I didn't eat meat. I ate fish and vegetables and, well, everything else around it. But my protein was pretty much just fish, and so the keto still worked because I could eat fish as my protein. I could eat like avocados and all that junk, and I still ate eggs too. So when I decided to do the carnivore, it was weird because I had not eaten meat in so long, and it was more like, I think I stopped initially for the health reasons back in the 80s when they said meat was bad for you, and I just stopped eating it.
Yeah.
But there were also other things that came into play, like the eating animals and that kind of thing. But I don't think that part of it was as strong for me. And so I had to sort of get over those things and just one day just think, I'm gonna try this and see what happens. And I remember going to the store and buying this big, huge ribeye steak. And I felt so weird. It was almost like nobody knows me at the store. And I'm up at the meat counter, like feeling like I'm getting away with something, ordering this meat that I've never, I hadn't ever ordered meat from this meat counter before. And, I just felt funny and like walking up to the cash register with it, and like everything about it, it was almost like a drug deal or something. It was weird.
Would you consider yourself a vegetarian prior to that? I mean, were you like, this is back when you were out in California, you felt like this, or is this when you're in Maryland?
Yeah, no, it was, no, I consider myself a pescatarian, which is, I just eat fish. It's like a vegetarian that eats fish and eggs. Well, vegetarian, I guess, they still eat eggs.
I went vegan for a little bit, and that's, you could eat anything with eyes or a mom, and it was tough for me not to. I think I couldn't eat cheese, and it was a lot of stuff I just remember that I really missed out on, and I did that for a while. But then I was so glad when I got back on the keto lifestyle and was able to really jump on that. But it's funny. So why don't you continue on the fact? So you buy this rib roast. You're coming out of the closet. The fact that you're going to start eating meat, and what was your experience? I mean, from that point on, how were you feeling health wise?
Well, I was already feeling better. Like I think just getting rid of the sugar and the carbs, like that did help a lot. And then that the first week that I jumped into the carnivore thing and started eating meat, I ate that big giant ribeye. I bought a bunch of bacon, and
there you go.
yeah. And I've been working out this whole time, but I still didn't. I looked in shape, but I didn't look like Steve looked when I first saw him still. I'm one of those guys that I can work out and work out and work out, and it's just really hard for me to gain muscle for some reason. But as soon as I went carnivore, that whole thing just went boom, and like all of a sudden my workouts got better and started paying off. Like I started seeing the difference like right away. like within the first couple of weeks. It was weird how fast that happened.
Wow.
But the obstacle that I ran into early on too was the relationship I was in. The girl, like we've been together for 25 years. And when I started eating meat, it totally freaked her out because the whole time she knew me, I never ate meat. And then all of a sudden here I was cooking stuff and she couldn't handle it. And it ended, well, ultimately it ended the relationship all because of the meat thing, which is pretty crazy. I mean, we're still friends, but she just couldn't handle. It was such a drastic change. I guess it just freaked her out.
Let me ask you a question. So, because people who are watching this right now who are saying, man, I could never give up my sugar. What were some of the things you did early on? Because I understand sugar is a tough drug to overcome. I mean, you start to think, well, I'll just have this piece of bread and it goes, okay. But it's hard to get that addiction broken when it comes to sugar. It's like one of the hardest substances to finally overcome it. But so I know what I did, but what did you do? Or did you keep going back to it, or did you literally just cut yourself free from sugar right out of the gate?
No. It was a slow transition. Like I would reward myself at first. It would be like a once a week thing. I'd say, okay, well, I'll hold out and maybe Sunday I can have this or the same thing with the traveling. I'd get through the whole weekend of shows and I'd stick to the keto thing. And then, I'd figure, okay, I'm done with shows. It was more like this reward system for me at first. And I just noticed that the more I did that, the easier it was to let myself slide and give into those cravings. And I think that was another thing that happened with the carnivore. It got a little bit easier to resist that stuff, and it's sort of and I've kept up my research too. It started with the whole cholesterol research. That's what kicked off reading all these books. I read Cholesterol Clarity, I think was the first one, and then I got into the nutrition stuff and following Dr. Berry and so the further I got into the nutrition and learned what happens inside when you ingest this stuff and what it does to you and how it's not just about the flavor in your mouth. There's a lot of things that it messes with when you eat that stuff. And so the more that I learned about it, the less I felt like doing it. Like I still have, it's funny, I have in my little pantry, I used to, when I was still doing, it was sort of half carnivore, but I'd still do the keto treat thing. So I have keto treats in there. I have some in my refrigerator, like we were talking earlier, but I also have these things called, what's Fat Snacks is the brand, and they're like keto cookies.
Fat bomb.
Well, they're called Fat Snacks, and they're these cookies, and they're keto friendly. And I bought those. Let's see, when did I buy those? Oh, this was like maybe back in September. That was probably the last time I ever bought any of these things, and they're still in my pantry. And normally when I was eating sugar, I couldn't.
It's okay to throw them out. You can part with them now. It's 2020. It's okay to get rid of them.
I know. Well, they don't have sugar in them. They are, they're all good ingredients, but it's keto stuff that I don't eat. But the fact that they're still there and I don't even think about them. And when I was eating sugar, if there was a cookie stashed somewhere, I knew it was there, and I could not. And it was like drugs. I knew I could not take my mind off of it. I'd be in bed at night, and I knew it was in the cabinet in there. I would never forget about it. But these, I almost want to leave them there just because it amazes me that I can not even want them.
The willpower that you now have, you now exhibit.
Well, I don't even know what it is, but I mean, I can even get done. Sometimes I'll get done eating a meal and I'll still feel like that urge for a dessert kind of, I still get that sometimes at the end of a meal, like if I'm not completely satisfied. And a couple times I opened that pantry door and I saw those cookies and I go, oh, I could eat one of those. I'm like, it's like, this doesn't even appeal to me anymore, which is really cool. It's like a blessing.
Well, no, that is a blessing. One of the things that my wife and I do intermittent fasting. Another thing I do is Wim Hof breathing. I don't know if you've done Wim Hof breathing. If you haven't, I'll send you the link. I'll put the link. It's breathing that really causes you to raise your immune system, but it just raises your body. It puts your body basically in an alert stage, and this makes you feel alive. And intermittent fasting does the same thing for me. It's amazing, both the Wim Hof breathing and intermittent fasting. Now, I kind of got away from intermittent fasting. I fasted yesterday for about 24 hours. But for a while there, I would not go a week without fasting for 3 days straight. And then I would just do one meal a day. And it's amazing. I used to think, how does people fast? But when I actually started to do it, it was amazing to me how much energy I had, and also how I was never hungry. I wasn't really, I almost had to force myself after, if I could do 3 days, I've really got to I know I got to eat something, but I really could have gone another day without it. It's like, I'm really okay with my body's going, we don't really need any food. We're good. So I don't know if you felt that way, or I don't know the longest fast you've ever done, but for 3 days, I really was like, wow, I could go another 3 days without eating. I didn't feel, I wasn't starving.
Yeah, well, I found that too. It's like, when I mentioned the fasting thing to somebody that doesn't do it, they're like, oh, there's no way I could ever do that. And, but, you'd be surprised what your body can handle. And especially, on this diet with no carbs or sugar, yeah, you don't have that like panic attack when you get hungry. And I have done a few. I think my longest fast was 3 days, like 72 hours. I'm not a big fan of the long ones. Like, I keep the intermittent daily thing consistent, and that's just easy because that's just sort of the pattern I'm on. Every once in a while, back when I was still traveling, I would pick a travel day and decide to just not eat. And that's the other thing. I used to, on these trips, I'd load up I have a laptop bag, which was my carry-on, and I'd load it up with snacks. Even keto snacks, nothing crazy, but now, or the last few months that I was traveling, I didn't even put snacks in there. It didn't even matter. It's like, well, it's not like I'm going to be in the middle of the flight and freak out and need something. It's like, I'll just wait till I get there, or wait till tomorrow, or whatever. It's like no big deal anymore. It's like an added freedom that you have.
Well, you said something early on the show, and I'll piggyback on it in regards to, when you became sober, dropped your alcohol addiction, which congratulations on doing that. That's something that I gave up about a year ago. And I didn't say give up because I every now and then I don't want to be stringent, like I got a law that I can't drink. So I have said to myself, I know I don't need it anymore. And, I actually, for the first time, I got together with some old friends on a Friday social happy hour, and I had some wine. And I'll be honest with you, it took me 3 days to recover, and I just had a couple glasses, and it was amazing how unhealthy that felt to me. So that's why I fasted Monday. I fasted a couple of days just to feel like I wanted to purge myself of that. I don't want to say poison, but it's like I didn't like the feeling that it gave me, because I feel so much better without it. And you probably can totally relate to that. Like, I just feel clean. That's the easiest way for me to describe it, is I felt clean. I felt like something had contaminated my body when I had those two glasses. And I live right in the middle of wine country here in Virginia. We got wineries all around us. And so it used to be one of our favorite things to go do, but I don't mind still going there. I'm like you with the cookies in your cabinet, in your pantry. I can go there and just socialize and just pour water and be totally just as happy as I was, or at least I thought I was, with a glass of wine. And the good thing is, I feel I feel still alert. I still feel good. I don't feel like there's any poison in my body. I don't have that effect that comes from having that. So as much as I've been very clean up until, having a couple of glasses Friday, it was a reminder to me, like, why in the world would I ever do that again? It's just because it's not that I have against anybody doing that or even myself. It's just that personally, I don't like feeling that way anymore. It's like, just like, why would I do that to myself? I'm having to learn the hard way in some areas of my life. Like I talked to you the other day, I love dark chocolate, and I guess I eat too much of the dark chocolate come with those sugar alcohols, and a lot of those really mess with my stomach. Like I can't have those anymore. Anytime I feel inflamed in my body, it's a place I don't want to go back to. But this product, Choco, that has 0 or 2 net carbs for a full bag, did not have it. So I love feeling good. I love feeling energized. At one point in my life, I was 300 pounds. Now I'm 192. The 192 is what I was in high school. So, I'm pretty much where I was in my senior year of high school. And so I just feel better. I really don't feel much different than I did in high school. I mean, so that's what I like. I like the energy that it brings when I eat a clean living. One of the questions I have before to wrap this thing up, and I know people are asking, well, what's the difference between keto and carnivore? So what, everybody has their own. So why don't you share with everybody what the difference for you was from going from keto to carnivore?
Okay. Well, Dr. Berry actually really describes it well. It's kind of like an extension of keto. He refers to like the carbohydrates dial. Keto, you dial it down to low carb, and then carnivore, you just take it all the way down. And basically I mean, I guess there are still some carbs involved, especially in some dairy stuff, but the carnivore diet, I hate to refer to it as a diet, but
carnivore lifestyle.
Yeah, what that is it just involves eating, like, all the food is animal based. There are no plants or fruits or, well, obviously no grains or any of that junk either. But yeah, it's all animal based food. And the way that I heard about it was through Michaela Peterson. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's Jordan Peterson's daughter, and Jordan Peterson's this intellectual guy that does these. He's like a speaker. He taught at some college. I forget what college it was, but he's from Canada. But his daughter had all these autoimmune issues and like severe arthritis from like an early age, and like horrible like skin problems, and she ended up having to have like joint replacements in her teens because her arthritis was so bad. And she discovered the carnivore diet, and it completely cleared all her arthritis went away, all her skin stuff went away, like it fixed everything. And I remember hearing this interview. Well, actually, it was Jordan Peterson talking about her, and then I went and listened, watched a couple of her interviews. And that's what really sparked it for me to really want to try it, because it's an elimination diet. You take all the fiber, all the everything out except for the basics. And I wanted to see what that would do, and what was still hanging around inside me that maybe I wasn't aware of. And because it's really, until it's gone, sometimes you don't even realize it's there. And for me, I've had like that bloated gut issues my whole life. I always struggled with that. And that's the one thing when I went full carnivore, it just cleared all that stuff up. And I realized, I'd go back. Yeah, I'd think about certain vegetables that I really like. Like I used to love Brussels sprouts, like roasted Brussels sprouts, or
yeah.
There's a few of them that I used to love, and so in my first year of actually the first full year that I was doing the carnivore, I was sort of bouncing back and forth between the two, keto and carnivore. So I'd go carnivore for a while, and then I'd go back and I'd try a few meals with vegetables. And I remember the first time I ate Brussels sprouts, and it felt like I was going to die. And I'm like, oh man, it's like, I love Brussels sprouts, but I can't eat these anymore. I just can't. And that's happened with several things that I love. One of the last things that I finally sort of gave up was like totally, are nuts. I love nuts. And I had a little container of a nut mix that I had put together, and it had like almonds and cashews. What else was in there? Pistachios. And there were some seeds in there, like sunflower and pumpkin seeds. It's just a mix of stuff. And I had it in my cabinet because I brought it with me when I moved to Nashville. And I remember one morning I opened the cabinet and I saw those, and I was like, oh man, I haven't had that in a while. I think I pulled it out because I have a chipmunk that lives under my front porch. So I was going to give some to the chipmunk, so I took a little handful, like tiny little bit, and I just ate some of them and regretted it, like right away. And it was like, oh, and that's another reason I had to give up some of those keto treats, because they're almond butter based. And that's another thing. I loved almond butter, but I can't eat it now. I mean,
no, one of the things that we're going to talk about in one of the next shows is the ingredients. And one of the things that I started getting serious about doing this, even nuts, you think buying nuts at the store, like I used to buy the big thing, the cashews at Costco and the big bag of smoked almonds and pecans. But then I started looking at when I started to realize, and it sounds like you probably did the same journey, how bad seed oils are for you. But I would start reading the bag of just nuts. Like I just want to buy some nuts, and the nuts would be cooked in seed oil
right.
And it's like, wow, I can't have this, because I started to have the same results. I would eat those nuts, and I could tell I would get sick, literally sick off of just eating nuts. And I pretty much have had to eliminate them from my diet as well. I still have some pecans or smoked almonds every now and then, but I used to love peanuts. I used to love smoked almonds. I used to love sunflower seeds, but when I realized it was hard for me to find those seeds that weren't covered in the seed oils that are not healthy for us, and then I started to feel bloated every time I'd have those, and especially, it's after a meal at night before going to bed. I just felt like I needed something just to get me through to sleep time. But then all of a sudden I just feel bloating up, and I was like, wow, why am I doing this to myself? So I've had to eliminate most of those as well, Brian.
Yeah, the nut thing. Well, the nuts that I had were actually, I bought them raw. So I knew that there was nothing on them, that they were all, it was my own mix. And we used to get backstage, well, we still do. The stuff that we get backstage, we put on the rider for shows, we get nuts. And that's the first thing I do with everything now. I pick it up and I look what's in it, and it's like, nope, that's got vegetable oil. And even pork rinds. Like, I'll eat pork rinds as a snack, like the pork cracklings they're called, because they have the skin, they crunch.
Yeah.
But you have to make sure they're fried in their own fat. Because here's the weird part. I was at some store, they had a whole organic section, and I was just browsing through, and I saw this brand of pork rinds that were supposed to be healthy. They're in the health section. I pick them up and I look at it, and it was pork rinds fried in canola oil. I'm like, what? Like, how to take like a healthy thing and make it unhealthy, and then sell it as it's more healthy. It's like, But I'm a stickler when it comes to ingredients. Like, I'll analyze and like people will message me and they'll go, have you ever tried this? And I'll Google it and I'll go ingredients, and I'll look at the ingredients list and I'll message them back and I go, you know what that has in it? like some people just, they only look at the little, the nutrition thing that says how many carbs and all that. They don't look at what's actually in it, and that's what really matters.
Because sugar's got so many different names that are disguised under different chemicals. Sugar's in, and the high fructose, and it's amazing how. Here's what I've learned: you cannot trust the labeling on anything, especially if they're trying to market the keto friendly. This is Atkins bar. This is keto friendly, heart healthy. none of those, if I pick, I don't eat any of those because the majority of them have stuff that I know is not good for me. But
Right.
somehow they're able to market and people buy those. But I know for me, I'm sick in eating most of that stuff because it's got the granola oil, it's got the seed oils, it's got stuff that I don't want, it's got preservatives that I don't want to be putting into my body. You know, I used to love snacking on pepperoni slices and cheese, and I've even given up pepperoni because of the nitrates and the chemicals in pepperoni. So even my bacon, I now make sure I get no nitrate bacon, and Costco actually has no nitrate deli meats. So I get that as well. So, but I used to love snacking with pepperoni and cheese, but I don't even do the pepperoni anymore for the same reason.
Yeah. Well,
Brian,
yeah,
look, we're going to wrap up.
I know.
I wanted to, why don't you tell everybody, you do all these cooking shows that you've been doing lately. Let me see if I can't bring one of those up on the, let me see if I can't pull one of your shows up. Well, I'm going to put the link to Brian's channel underneath this one, so you guys can click on and go subscribe to Brian's channel. Give him a thumbs up. He doesn't have your normal foods that you cook. Matter of fact, I want to ask him about some of the food dishes that he creates on the next show. But feel free to message us. You can reach out to Brian, or you can send me an email to coachketo22@gmail.com and ask us some questions, or share some of your successes or some of your obstacles that you've had to overcome in going keto, or some of your struggles. And you're like, look, I've tried everything the doctor has. I really want to learn how to do this. Look, I'm more than happy to come alongside you and help you be able to come over to the Keto Carnivore Nation and become a carnivorian or a ketonian. So anyway, that's all I got to say. Brian, you got anything before we wrap this up?
Nah, just keep eating healthy.
Real quick question before we get off this. When is Kix expected to resume their concert schedule? What do you guys have heard out there as far as the quarantine? When are you guys going to be able to resume a schedule, if at all?
I have no idea. It's like, well, not every day, but every few days, we'll get another email from our booking agent with another show that's been pushed further away. We just got one. The next one that was coming up was the end of May that was still scheduled. There were 2 dates in Texas, and they just got pushed to October. So, they just keep getting pushed further down the road. And I don't know when, because they're saying once stuff starts to go back to normal, probably sports events and concerts will be the last. Those will be the 2 things that won't go back to normal. So, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm kind of like, I'm not freaking out yet, but a little bit concerned.
Whatever's going to happen, we're all going to be fine. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for taking time to listen a little bit more about what keto and carnivore is, and just let you know when you got a person like Brian, it's a busy schedule, on the road, that he's able to do it. Hopefully this encourages you to be able to do it, because all this is about is just encouraging you to get healthy. That's all it's about. So click out the links before. You guys have a great evening. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.